Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. My name's Dilta Doherty, and in this podcast series, I will be interviewing investors, advisors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and recruiters who are based all over the world. And I'm going to be trying to figure out how to set up, scale, and operate a world-class recruitment business. So I had a call from Alex Moyle the other day, who we've had on this show. He's a recruitment trainer here in the UK. He said, we have an opening for a speaker. Somebody's just dropped out. Would you jump in and prepare a talk for us? Just pick a subject, come along. And I said, okay, all right, why not? So I'm going to give a little talk on applying the 4-hour working week principles to agency recruitment. And it's a subject I'll speak about on here a little bit more often. But basically, it's just how to get more out of your day by using assistance and automation and using new marketing techniques in order to draw people to you, as opposed to having to just pound the phone and beg for work and beg people to work with you. But that led me to speaking to Louise Triance, who I invited on the podcast because I don't have a clue about events, and she runs this for the UK, as well as running lots of different marketing programs like the Tech Showdown on Crowdcast, which I listen to on a weekly basis, where I get updates on all the latest software for recruitment agencies because I'm just into that type of stuff. And so anyway, I had her on the show today. Great guest, really knowledgeable. She's been running events in the UK for 20 odd years, and she was really able to kind of jump into giving me the highlights of the Tech Showdown, what she thinks the future of agency recruitment looks like, with new technologies such as AI and voice, and how we can implement that to make lots more money. She's really excited about the future. She doesn't think we're going to get replaced. She just thinks that it's going to get rid of all the rubbish recruiters, which is great, right? We're all happy about that. And so we had a great chat about that. And I asked her a few questions about, like, why should you go to events? If you're there, how do you kind of go about getting value out of it? Why should people be a speaker at an event? What type of stuff should you prepare beforehand? How should you do it afterwards? And yeah, just it's a world I don't really know. I live an hour and a half from London, so I don't really get in much. So I'm looking forward to going and speaking at the event on the 26th of September. And yeah, just doing something a little new and getting to meet some more people in the industry, and hopefully getting to line up a few more interesting guests for the podcast. Anyway, over to Louise. Good morning, Louise. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you very much. How are you?
Yeah, I am not bad at all. How do I pronounce your surname?
Triance.
Triance. Okay, great. Okay, I will not even try and ask you how to pronounce my first name.
It's a challenge, isn't it? I have to say, I personally don't mind if people mispronounce my name or even actually get my first name wrong. But I know that for others, it's obviously a really important thing to them. So I do try to make an effort myself.
So thank you so much for agreeing to come on the podcast. We'll jump into your background in a second, and I suppose just to set the scene, I've asked you to come on here because you're basically the events person for recruitment in the UK, and I want to kind of deep dive into everything to do with that and how it can improve recruitment businesses if they do take part in that. But I suppose before we jump into all of that, how did you get into our weird and wonderful world of recruitment?
So I 25 years ago, I started working for recruitment consultancy, and I joined as an admin person and ended up doing every single job in that business, and left as a consultant. And they did do contingency work, but their specialist area was exec search. So that's where I got my recruiting experience. Then after that, I decided I didn't want to really be a recruiter anymore. I have to say, I love having conversations with candidates, sourcing stage, but the sales bit just wasn't for me. So I decided to get involved in more of a community way. So we started doing training on how to use the internet. That was 18 years ago, 20 years ago. And since then, I've built up a kind of community site of recruiters. So bringing people together. You mentioned events, but through events, through content, through social media.
What were those early days like, trying to educate people about the internet? Were recruitment firms resistant on it?
It was very amusing. Some were really resistant. There's a very, very large search firm, in the top 5 search firms, who said they would never ever use the internet for anything, not just for headhunting. But loads of them could really see the potential. It was just very challenging, I guess, getting your head around it conceptually in the early days. So you had to learn what the internet was before you could use it. So I'm old school.
And is this in the 90s, the late 90s?
Yeah. It literally was right at the start of, I had an AOL account when I worked for a recruitment company. And there was one computer with the internet on it. And we would all take it in turn to log on and see whether there were any email applications from these new things called job boards. I was advertising in the Sunday Times, so that's on Grocer magazine and places like that in the actual print publication when I
started. So what was it in you that saw that maybe the internet is going to change everything? Was there somebody around you? Was it like what in your background kind of give you the foresight to go, okay, I'm going to jump into this now. I'm going to be this person?
It was just luck, I have to say. It's like falling into recruitment. So it was actually, my dad was doing training. So my dad had worked for a large tech company, and he branched off and started doing training for business people using the internet. So very lazily, I just said, oh, do you know what? Let's just do a bit of recruiting as well. So then there was no foresight in that. Having said that, subsequently, I have made an enormous effort to be closer to the forefront of this learning curve around technology. And so I have made a proper effort to be one of the early bloggers, one of the early adapters of, different technologies that are relevant in the recruitment space.
And Louise, when we look back at those early days of advising recruitment companies about the internet, what type of things were you saying to them? Like what were you envisaging, a world where everything would move online?
I should have got out an old training course to have a glance through. But it was so basic. One of the first things which really excited recruiters was the movement of a staffing directory from paper to being online. So it was really quite basic stuff like, if you were recruiting lawyers, then you could find a directory which would traditionally have been a print directory of all the lawyers in Europe online, and then you could go through and you could find their contact details. So it was stuff like that, and using online forums. So that hasn't changed particularly. It's just that the actual forums have advanced. So you would use user groups to get developers. Now that's actually obviously still used an awful lot now, but things like LinkedIn to communicate with, really we weren't covering in any detail in the early days. And obviously the mobile smartphone apps, none of that existed. So if we were doing training now, it would be around using some of those apps to communicate, which we just won't cover.
You were an early adopter of social selling. I did a postgrad in marketing around 2008, 2009, and we weren't really taught any of that. How quickly did you adopt blogging and things like that?
Yeah, I was very, very early days for blogging. So I've been blogging for, I think, probably 12 years now. Um, and we started doing these blog awards 10 years ago. And people just weren't. So, I could count the number of people at a blog who had their own blogs on two hands.
Right.
And so what we were looking at was we were talking about these blog awards as a way to encourage other people to blog. Um, but now content is just it. And I guess that's one of the things that we see with you doing these podcasts is that what we're doing is we're creating content, we're creating marketing content, and blogging was a mechanism for that. In the same way that LinkedIn updates are, so you can write LinkedIn articles, you can write LinkedIn updates, their content. Same with Twitter. Really early days on Twitter, it was just the most lovely conversations that people were having, and it was accidental marketing. So you do be building relationships through genuine conversations rather than saying, "Look at my adverts." And blogging was the same. It was the start of a conversation.
You've from the early days of blogging, you've kind of gone into doing a lot more video casts and that. When did that evolution take place? And what does your week look like from a content creation perspective? Because it must be quite busy between events, tech casts, like coming onto podcasts, writing articles. Like, how do you structure your own working life?
Really badly. So I would probably typically write a blog about how to structure your social, and I would give advice on what to do, and that advice would be stuff around thinking about themes going forward. So obviously planning out those themes, thinking about partnerships of people who you can involve in content. So actually structuring something and then spending only a certain amount of time on each. So, in an ideal world, if you're going to publish 3 blogs a week, you'd write them all in one go. If you're going to do a podcast or a live cast, I do, then obviously you'd work on that all in one go, and you'd work out who you're going to have on that, and then you do the marketing for it and the design and all the rest of it, and then push that out. And then the other bit of advice I'd always give would be to make use of every content across every single channel. So one piece of content should be going out on your social channels in a lot of different ways, and you would use a I don't know, Hootsuite type thing platform to do that. I don't do any of that myself because I am just always so full on. I guess that after 20 years it works for me. I wouldn't recommend anyone replicate how I do it. So at the same time, I'm working on 3 events at the same time now, 2 different types of live cast shows, and blogs. Also, I'm going to start up the blog awards. Nomination process will start up soon. So I'm a terrible example of how to structure that content marketing piece. I think that in a recruitment business, as a recruiter, you do need to have that better organized, because amongst all of that, you're doing actual recruiting activity.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a real challenge for people, how to manage to fit in content creation into their day on a daily basis, and to obviously distribute that in the right way while still managing to hit the phones, meet people, yes, and do all of that. And what excites you about what's coming next for talent and recruitment in general, from all these amazing video interviews that you've been creating? What do you call that, by the way? The
Tech Showdowns.
The Tech Showdowns. Could you give us a little insight into that, and maybe some of the interesting themes that's come out of it?
Yeah, what's been really this is a terrible admission to make, but what's been really good about this is that lots of these providers are people who I've known for years and I've never had a proper conversation with about their product. So, we did in series 1, which was specifically for our physical technology event. I interviewed 19 providers, and there were companies in there who I'm literally speaking to since the beginning. So Bond and Bullhorn and eRecruit. So from there, either their inception or my inception, I had no real idea of what their sweet spot was for recruiters, or exactly the ways in which they could help those businesses. Yeah, they were great, but I didn't know the intricacies, and that's what's been really useful for me. Find out a bit more about those businesses. I guess I don't need to know it. I just need to know who the recruiters love and the way to interact with them. But that's been really valuable. This new series, there are companies in this series who I don't know before. So yesterday I did one with a company who's been around for as long as I have, ETZ Payment, who I always thought did the back office paymenty stuff, but they've got some big plans, and so that's made it really interesting for me. And then there's some social ones. So next week will be a really cool show because it's Kelly Robinson, ex Broadbean, talking about his new product, which is a social content app. I think that there's going to be some really exciting series, and then obviously, as a content producer, we'll do the show. I'll blog about it. I'll share it. I'll talk about it online.
It's an area that's really, really got me, kind of got the juices flowing for me. And when I look at my own business as a Rector Ag, I see so many holes in it that I'm probably not using my data right. And I've had some really interesting guests that you've had on as well, and they've discussed that in depth. So I'm really going to try and implement one or two of the new techs over the next year. I hope I can get some value out of it. Sometimes what I like about what you're doing is that there's so much information out there that it's really hard for somebody to grab the specific one that suits them.
Yeah.
So that's
a challenge, isn't it? I think that is, and even when I do shows like this, you still have to listen to the show. There isn't a magic answer where you can just import the stuff which is really relevant to you. There is an investigation process involved in that, and that is really quite time consuming. And that probably is what stops lots of recruiters taking a step over the threshold. Is that actually there's a lot of different offerings to explore. And with the whole AI machine learning thing, there's something else around the corner which is going to start having an impact. And I guess that creates a certain amount of station.
Yeah, that whole area fascinates me, and I had a call from Alex Moyle the other day, and this is how this conversation's come around. And he said, hey, we've had a dropout for an event in London. Would you like to come to speak? So you could speak about, because I had Alex on here and we had a great discussion. And I said, I'll do the 4-hour work week applied to agency recruitment. And he goes, oh, how can you do that? So we discussed it. But the way I see that, and I see the future of agency recruitment, I think that the things that are going to be important are creating content and having your day freed up to be able to speak and influence our candidates and clients and build our relationships that way. And having all our administration outsourced. And right now, I have 95% of my administration outsourced to my assistants. I think that will, a large part of what their next development is to create their own content and create their own brand, so then they can run the tools that run all this for them. And then machine learning comes in, where it has a script on learning exactly what that process is and how to improve it and how to suggest little changes and tweaks and all the rest, so we can improve every little step along the way. What's your visions on the future? Do you think we're going to get replaced by technology?
Only the rubbish ones of us. Uh, I think that if you are a really, really weak recruiter, um, who has no strong skills around relationship building, then I think you ought to be concerned. I think that if you are a great communicator who understands a need from both the client and the candidate perspective and can really match that, then I think that you ought to be embracing this, because it'll just mean you can make a hell of a lot more placements. When I started in recruitment and I wanted to interview, I did a massive campaign for the Prudential for some sales rep people. I interviewed at Sutton Scotney Services on 5 for 3 weeks. Every day I interviewed 14 people. Well, someone had to phone up all those people to make those appointments and then rearrange them, send them something in the post. The admin job on that was hideous. Now, that would not be the process that we would go through. I wouldn't have to sit in a god-awful service station interviewing back to back. We would be doing this via video interviewing. The admin part of that can be automated. So that would leave me more time to actually get to know these people and see whether they would be good for this role. So why would that not be a great thing?
I know I'm really excited by being able to reach more people and have more time to directly work and build relationships with people. It just makes sense. And I hate administration. I'm rubbish at it. So more power to technology that's coming.
Absolutely.
Do you think that voice will have a big
Yeah.
impact?
Yeah, one of the other events I'm organising at the moment is a job board summit, and we've got Broadbean's developer who developed the Alexa. It's not a skill; they're not called apps, are they? The skill for Alexa for voice search. He's just going to come along and talk about it. What's kind of interesting about it is that you don't actually really need to even talk about it. You can explain the concept in 30 seconds. You know, a job seeker is making their morning cup of coffee and they say to their Alexa, what jobs are there? And Alexa will reel off jobs that match that job seeker's basic criteria. And the job seeker will say, send my CV to the first two. That is what is going to be happening. I mean, there's loads of issues around that, around spammy job application and the level of detail that you can give in voice. But that's basically what it is, and that's how it's going to work.
Yeah, and let me reverse that. So the recruiter is having his third morning coffee. has a ton of stuff in front of he says, "Hey Alexa," and let me be the recruiter here. I've got 8 open recs for IT recruiters from the UK who want to go to New York right now. I need you to go into my 30,000 connections. The same with Charlotte, and the same with the 2 assistants. And then what I need you to do is go into and message these people within these parameters and create a message that will most likely get a response from them. And then coordinate that with my diary to try and schedule a call as soon as possible. And once we get that call and we get it all in, then I'd say, hey Alexa, what I need you to do is I need to send this guy to this company, this to this, this to this, this to this. Make sure that all the candidates are prepared. They have all the podcasts that we've done with all the clients. We've done all of this. And then I need you to coordinate some of the interviews that'll happen and make sure that I'll be involved in the feedback process along the value chain to make sure that everything's on track and we're adding value. And that's a really exciting place where we could be.
Yeah, that's right. And what is there not to be excited about there? It sounds quite appealing that you could just literally sit with your feet up on your desk, issuing commands to your robot whilst drinking coffee.
But I think in order to get to that ivory tower, we need to really, really work hard to become the authority in our space for what we do and for people to know that. So we have trust before that's happening, because everybody else, because when everybody's doing that, it's going to be hard for your message to stand out, right?
Yeah. Well, in 10 years' time, it will be, yeah, it will be the norm. And then you still have to be a great recruiter, which you had to be a great recruiter 20 years ago. And there were rubbish recruiters 20 years ago, and there'll be recruiters in 20 years' time. You know, you still have to care and want to be the best, and they're the people who will hope to rise to the top.
And Louise, it kind of brings me on to the event stuff. When did you start hosting events, and what advice? Say I'm somebody who's going to speak at an event for the first time, which I am. What advice would you have for me in terms of maybe preparation, or when I'm there in terms of networking, or like what have you seen where you go, oh, that really worked and this person got a lot of value from that?
So I guess there's three sides to events. There's the value in organising them. There's the value in attending as a delegate, and then there's the value in speaking. And I think that recruiters can get value from all three angles there. I think as a speaker, there's a number of reasons that we speak at events. One is because it's on the pathway to something else. So I think that recruiters should always consider whether they are going to be able to raise their profile through being seen as a speaker. And I think generally speaking, the answer is yes. I think that being able to put on your LinkedIn profile some examples of speaking gigs that you've done with the content there is really, really useful. And so that is the path you're taking. And you're looking to identify opportunities which will introduce you to that. So you want to start with ones where you get a really positive response. Don't put yourself in at the deep end and for that type of person. Make sure the audience is aligned with what you're going to be talking about. And then obviously do all the preparation so that what you deliver not only pleases that audience, but when you can showcase it later, it would have value to people afterwards.
Well, great. So Louise, tell me, what events have you got coming up in the UK, and how can people reach out to you?
Okay, so the event that you're very, very kindly speaking at is a new one that we're running. It's only our second one this year, and it's called Inspire Recruitment. And it's 12 speakers all doing 5 minutes. It's fast paced, it's fun, but it's a learning experience. So honestly, everyone can come to this event as long as you've got something to do with recruitment. You'd be welcome to attend, and you'd find that on the UK Recruiter website. The other events I'm working on, like I said, the one for job boards, but the other one is the end of the year conference. So that's a really, really cool event we run in a nightclub during the day in central London. That's in November. That one is more formal presentations, but from a recruiter perspective, looking to attend, it's learning and it's networking, and then there's a ton of beers afterwards.
Okay, Louise, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been really great getting to know you a bit better.
I look forward to meeting you on the 26th of September.
Take care.
See you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Well, a massive thank you to Louise for coming on the podcast. And I'm excited to put together a quick 5-minute rundown of how you apply the 4-hour working week to agency recruitment. It's a subject I will be going into more on in this podcast series. And look, it doesn't mean just working 4 hours a day. What it means is itemizing all the tasks and recording what you've done for a week, and then breaking that into tasks, and then creating instruction manuals of how to do that, and working out which out of them do not affect your influence on either candidates or clients. So when you look back, you could say, okay, I speak to clients, I speak to candidates, and I get my assistants or my automation tools to do the coordination in between. I create content, but the delivery of that content, should I be doing that? The distribution of it, should I be doing that? I don't know. So whatever works for you, but essentially That's the whole premise behind it. It should allow you to have your whole day free to just do the high-end touch points, because I think in the future, all the administration is going to go. And as I discussed with Louise, I think voice is going to have a major part in it. AI will have a major part in it. But the human side of being able to connect with somebody and influence them in a way that best suits them and the person on the other side, whether that's the client or the candidate, is really where it's at. And if you want to get them to you, then you need to create content to be able to do that. So structuring your week in a way that does those things makes logical sense to me. Maybe you don't agree with me. I don't know. It's what I believe anyway. And hopefully I can smash it out and just break it down a little bit. And we will see. It's on the 26th of September in London. And I'm just looking forward to getting out of West Sussex, getting into the big smoke for a day, talking recruitment with people, feeling that city buzz again. I really miss that. I feel like I'm getting isolated a little bit here in the countryside, and running a good wee recruitment business, and this podcast is keeping me going. But there's nothing like getting out there and getting to meet people in our industry and making things happen. So I hope you all had a great week, and we will be back next week with another guest. I think I'll have quite a high profile one on, which I'm excited about. And yeah, good luck, God bless, and thank you for all the support for the podcast. And to the guy who owns a recruitment firm who reached out to me yesterday and said, Dulta, we actually used one of your episodes as an induction to our new recruits for when you spoke to Rich Rose in the $1 Million Biller about how he runs his desk and how he's become so successful. So that's really cool for me to think that something I've said here or elicited from somebody else has helped a business owner inspire some young people to go and make it in our industry. And yeah, got a real buzz from that. So thanks for the call, and for everybody else who's messaged me about the podcast and how it's helping them. Just give me a suggestion of which area you'd like me to focus on, and I'm happy to find the right person, bring them on, and get the information out of them, because I want to learn as well. All right. Till next time.
The podcast you just heard was published with Anchor. Got something you want to say to the creator of this show? Send them a voice message using the Anchor app, free for iOS and Android.